The hum of the refrigerator in our Naperville home felt like a ticking clock. I stood in the threshold of the kitchen, the weight of a 16-hour shift at the Chicago construction site still pulling at my shoulders. It was 1:45 a.m. The house should have been dark. Instead, the amber glow of the pendant lights caught the condensation on a bottle of my best Cabernet, the one I'd been saving for our anniversary. Elena was there, her hair perfectly tossed as if she hadn't been waiting up for me, but for him and Julian. Julian was leaning back in my chair, his feet inches away from the custom cabinetry I'd installed myself. They weren't just talking. They were sharing a space that was supposed to be sacred to our marriage. "David, you're home late," Elena said, her voice lacking any warmth. She didn't get up to greet me. Wait, she just adjusted her silk robe. Julian had a crisis at his apartment, a pipe burst, and he needed somewhere to clear his head. I told him he could stay here for a few days. I looked at Julian. He didn't look like a man with a flooded apartment. He looked like a man who had just conquered a small kingdom. "Hey, Dave, hope you don't mind. The wine is excellent, by the way. You always did have expensive taste." "The wine was for our anniversary, Elena," I said, my voice dangerously low. "And Julian has a brother in Aurora. Why is he in our kitchen at 2 in the morning?" Elena's face hardened. This was the shift, the moment where she stopped being my partner and started being his lawyer. "He's my best friend, David. Why are you being so territorial? It's just wine, and it's just a chair. Honestly, your hostility is becoming a real problem for my mental health." I felt the gaslighting begin to swirl like a thick fog. This was my home. I paid the taxes, I fixed the leaks, I built the life. Yet standing there, I felt like a trespasser. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. "I want him out, Elena. Now," I said. Julian sighed, a theatrical, wounded sound. "Maybe I should go, Len. I don't want to be the reason your commander husband has another one of his episodes." Elena stood up, her eyes flashing. "No, you aren't going anywhere. David, you just insulted a man who has been more supportive of me this year than you have. You've upset him in his time of need. What, you are going to apologize to Julian, or you can find somewhere else to sleep tonight." I looked at the ring on my finger. It felt like a shackle. I looked at Julian, who was hiding a smirk behind his glass. The family secrets were starting to leak out, and the revenge was a seed just beginning to take root in the back of my mind. I spent the rest of the night in the guest room, listening to the muffled sounds of their laughter through the vents. Every chuckle felt like a needle under my skin. I am an architect by trade. I understand how structures fail. It usually starts with a hairline crack, something small, ignored, or painted over. Julian was that crack. He had been the best friend since their days at Northwestern. When we got married, he was the man of honor. I had tried to be the modern, secure husband. I'd invited him to games. I'd helped him move. I'd even lent him money. But over the last year, the crack had become a canyon. As the sun began to rise over the Illinois plains, I didn't go back to sleep. I opened my laptop. I am a man of data. I started looking at our joint accounts. We lived a comfortable life. But as I scrolled through the digital ledgers, I noticed a pattern. Small, recurring transfers to a Venmo account I didn't recognize. Consulting fees, the memo said, totaling nearly $12,000 over 6 months. I felt a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the morning air. Elena didn't have a consultant. She was a marketing director. Julian, however, was a freelance creative who was always 1 month away from a big break. I walked into the kitchen at 7 a.m., and Julian was gone, likely sleeping off the wine in the basement, but Elena was there, aggressively cleaning the counter. "I'm waiting for that apology, David," she said without looking up. "Julian is staying in the guest suite for the week. If you can't be civil, don't speak to him." "I'll do better than civil, Elena," I said, my voice devoid of the anger from the night before. I had moved past anger into a state of cold, calculated observation. "I'll take you both to dinner tonight. My treat. We'll go to that steakhouse in Oak Brook. I want to make it right." She stopped scrubbing and looked at me, a flicker of doubt in her eyes replaced by a wave of triumph. Really? You mean that? Absolutely, I said. I realize now how much he means to you. I want to show him and you exactly how much I value this human arrangement. The steakhouse was a temple of mahogany and red leather. It was the kind of place where men in power suits made deals that changed the city skyline. Julian arrived wearing a jacket that looked suspiciously like one I'd lost last winter. He walked with a swagger that suggested he owned the floor. "Dave, good to see you in a better mood," Julian boomed, reaching out for a handshake. I took it. His palm was soft, the hand of a man who had never worked a day of manual labor in his life. We sat and the performance began. Julian ordered the Wagyu ribeye and a bottle of scotch that made the waiter raise an eyebrow. Elena sat between us, her hand occasionally brushing Julian's arm as she laughed at his stories about their college days. "So, Julian," I said, leaning in, "Elena mentioned you're working on a new venture. A creative agency?" Julian straightened up, his eyes gleaming. "Yeah, Aura Media. We're looking to disrupt the Chicago boutique market. Elena has been a huge help with the branding strategy." "I bet she has," I said. "A venture like that needs capital. It's a shame the interest rates are so high right now." Elena kicked me under the table. "A warning. We're managing, David. Julian has a lot of potential investors." I smiled. I knew the investor was currently sitting across from me, wearing my stolen jacket. But I had a secret of my own. Before dinner, I'd met with Silas, a private investigator I knew from the construction industry. He'd already started pulling Julian's public records. Julian wasn't a creative. He was a serial debtor with 2 state judgments for fraud in Cook County. "To friendship," I said, raising my glass, "and to getting exactly what we deserve." They toasted with me, oblivious to the fact that the apology dinner was actually a funeral for our marriage. The following week was a masterclass in deception. I played the doting, reprogrammed husband. I even encouraged Julian to use my home office for his meetings. While he sat in my chair, using my high-speed fiber optic line to browse social media, I was working with Silas in the shadows. We found the smoking gun on a Tuesday afternoon. It wasn't just the $12,000. It was a power of attorney document Elena had drafted, but hadn't filed yet. It gave her full control over my premarital assets, including the Naperville property and my investment accounts in the event of my incapacitation. But the most chilling discovery was a series of emails between them. And they weren't just planning an affair, they were planning a life. Julian was coaching her on how to trigger my anger issues so she could file for a restraining order. A move that would legally kick me out of the house I owned while the divorce finalized. "He's a hothead, Len," Julian had written. "Just keep pushing the best friend button. Eventually he'll swing, or he'll scream, and then we have him. The house becomes Aura Media's headquarters, and Dave becomes a memory." I sat in my truck in a parking lot off the 88, reading those words over and over. They didn't just want a divorce. They wanted to erase me and harvest the remains of my life. If you were in my shoes facing a situation like this, where your spouse is literally plotting to use the legal system to steal your home, what would your next move be? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I called Silas. "It's time for the charity gala," I said. "I want the full digital package ready. Every email, every bank transfer, and that video you caught of them in the living room while I was at work." "You sure about this, Dave?" Silas asked. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back to normal." "Normal died the moment she asked me to apologize to that parasite," I replied. "Now I just want justice." The Drake Hotel in downtown Chicago is a monument to old-world opulence. Gold leaf ceilings, heavy velvet drapes, and the kind of history that makes you feel small. It was the perfect stage for a public execution. Elena looked stunning in a deep emerald gown, a color that suggested envy and growth, though tonight it only represented the former. Julian was by her side, looking like a peacock in a tailored tuxedo I suspected was charged to our joint credit card. He was working the room, shaking hands with judges and developers, playing the role of the rising star of Aura Media. "You're awfully quiet tonight, David," Elena whispered as we stood near the champagne fountain. She adjusted my tie, a gesture that once would have felt intimate, but now felt like a noose being tightened. "Just taking it all in, Elena," I said, offering a tight smile. "It's a big night for your father. I want everything to be perfect." It will be, and she said, her eyes drifting back to Julian. And thank you for being so gracious with Julian lately. It means a lot to see you two finally getting along. I watched her walk away to join him. I checked my watch. 8:30 p.m. In 30 minutes, the tribute video for her father, Isha Arthur, was scheduled to play on the 4 massive projector screens surrounding the ballroom. I walked toward the tech booth. The young technician, a friend of Silas, gave me a subtle nod. The thumb drive was already in the system. The original Family Memories video had been expertly edited. It still started with the photos of Arthur's career and Elena's childhood, but the middle section had been replaced with the truth. I found a spot at the back of the room, sipping a club soda. I watched Arthur take the stage. He was a proud man, a pillar of the Naperville community. He spoke of legacy, of family, and of the importance of trust. He had no idea his daughter was currently using his reputation as a shield for a con artist. And now, Arthur said, his voice booming with pride, "Jedawai, my daughter and her husband have prepared a short video looking back at our family's journey. Please enjoy." The lights dimmed. The chatter of 300 people died down to a low hum. The music began, a soft, orchestral version of a classic song. The screen showed Arthur's first construction site, then a photo of me and Elena on our wedding day. I saw Elena lean her head on Julian's shoulder in the dark, thinking no one was watching. Then the music skipped. A harsh, digital glitch sound tore through the ballroom. The screen didn't show Arthur's graduation. It showed a high-definition recording from my living room. It was dated 3 nights ago. The audio was crystal clear. "He's so clueless, Julian," Elena's voice echoed through the Drake's professional sound system. On screen, she was pouring a glass of wine while Julian sat at my desk. "He actually apologized. I think he's finally broken. Once we get him to sign the power of attorney, the house is ours. We can finally move to the city and start the agency for real." The room went from silent to frozen. I watched Arthur's back stiffen. I saw Elena stand up, her face turning a ghastly shade of gray in the blue light of the projector. Then came the bank statements, giant, glowing PDF files of the $12,000 transfers. And finally, the Aura Media loan application with my forged signature and the incapacitation clause highlighted in bright red. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in my story and share your thoughts in the comments. Was it seeing the betrayal? Or hearing the way she spoke about her husband behind his back? I walked slowly toward the front of the room. The spotlight intended for Arthur caught me. "I think there's been a mistake," I said into the silence, my voice calm and resonant. "That's not the legacy Arthur built. That's the legacy Julian and Elena were building on my grave." "Julian, you wanted an apology? I'm sorry I didn't record you sooner." The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal fire and social ash. Arthur, a man of immense pride, had Elena and Julian escorted out of the gala by hotel security before the police even arrived. He didn't look at his daughter as she screamed that I had hacked her, that it was a deep fake. He only looked at the floor. 48 hours later, I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room. His voice like grinding stones. "We have the digital forensics, the video confession, and 3 witnesses from the bank who are prepared to testify that Julian claimed to be David's business partner." "I just wanted something of my own," Elena sobbed. "David, you were always so focused on work. Julian made me feel like I was part of a dream. A dream funded by my 401k, I said. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. I just felt a profound sense of exhaustion." "You didn't just have an affair, Elena. You tried to steal my future. You tried to make me a prisoner in my own life." Marcus pushed the settlement toward her. "Sign the quitclaim, waive the alimony, forfeit the joint savings. In exchange, David will not press criminal charges for the forgery. You walk away with your personal items and the clothes on your back. That's the deal. She looked at me, searching for the man who used to apologize just to stop her from crying. She didn't find him. She signed the papers. The house in Naperville was too quiet. After the movers took Elena's things, the echoes returned. I walked through the rooms, looking at the spots where Julian had sat, where they had whispered, on where I had been gaslit into believing I was the problem. I hired a cleaning crew to deep clean every inch of the place. I wanted the scent of her perfume and the lingering smell of Julian's bourbon gone. Silas met me on the back deck as the sun set over the suburbs. "Julian's done, Dave," he said, handing me a file. "The bank is pressing charges for the loan fraud. He's looking at 3 to 5 years. And Elena, well, she's living in a studio apartment in Cicero. Her father cut her off completely." "I heard," Mike, I said. "He called me. He apologized for not seeing it." "What's next for you?" Silas asked. I looked out at the yard I'd mowed 100 times, the deck I'd stained, the life I'd curated. "I'm selling it, all of it. I'm an architect, Silas. I know when a foundation is too cracked to save. You don't renovate a house built on a sinkhole. You tear it down and start over." 6 months later, I was standing on the balcony of my new condo in the West Loop. Below me, the city of Chicago pulsed with a different kind of energy, honest, raw, and moving. I had sold the Naperville house for a significant profit, every penny of which was now tucked away in accounts Elena would never touch. I heard through the grapevine that Julian had taken a plea deal. He was currently wearing a different kind of suit, a bright orange one in a state facility. Elena had reached out once, a long, rambling email about healing and forgiveness. I didn't even finish reading it before I hit delete. I had spent years of my life building structures for other people, ensuring their homes were safe and their foundations were solid. I had forgotten to check my own. But as I looked at the blueprint for my next project, a community center on the South Side, I realized I'd finally built something that couldn't be shaken. The story of the best friend isn't a story about an affair. It's a story about the boundaries we fail to set and the people who mistake our silence for permission. I used to think that being a good husband meant making sure everyone else was happy, even at the cost of my own dignity. I thought an apology was a small price to pay for peace. I was wrong. Peace without respect isn't peace. It's a truce in a war you're already losing. If you're out there right now feeling like a guest in your own home, or if you're being told that your gut feeling is just jealousy, listen to me. Trust the data, trust the cracks, and never apologize for protecting the life you built with your own 2 hands. I want to thank you all for watching and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this cinematic breakdown of how I took my life back from the people who tried to steal it, please hit that like button and subscribe to Family Secrets and Revenge for more stories of justice, truth, and the high price of betrayal. This channel exists because the truth deserves to be told, and justice is a dish best served with evidence. Don't forget to share your overall thoughts on my story in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know how you would have handled the reckoning. Until next time, stay vigilant and keep your foundation strong.